You're listening to an Airwave Media Podcast.
Hold your ears, folks. It's showtime.
People pay good money to see this movie. When they go out to a theater, they want cold sodas, hot popcorn, and no monsters in the projection booth.
Everyone pretend podcasting isn't boring.
Turn it off.
Turn it off.
Hey folks, welcome to a special bonus interview. A few weeks after we did the episode on White Sands, I had the pleasure of speaking with the director of White Sands, Roger Donaldson. It's a quick interview. Hope you enjoy it. Thanks for listening. What for you was the break or the opportunity in order to start making films in the U.S.? Was it The Bounty?
No, the break for me was really a film I made called Smash Palace. It was a film I made in New Zealand. And I took it to the Cannes Film Festival, I guess it was 81, I think it was. Some American critics saw the film there and fell in love with it and started promoting me internationally because I hadn't really stepped outside New Zealand much at that time. And the film sort of got noticed here in America, and David Brown and Richard Zanuck, two US producers, approached me about coming to America and doing a film here. And it was a project called A Shattered Silence, written by Abby Mann, who wrote Judgment at Nuremberg. And so I came over here and started working on that project, but that went into turnaround, never got made. And then I met Ed Pressman, an American producer, who got me to sign on to direct a sequel to Conan and to be involved in writing a script for that project. Not long after I started on that, I met Dino De Laurentiis, who had bought the rights to Conan, and he persuaded me to give up on Conan and to do The Bounty. So The Bounty really was my first foreign international film, and that was, I was hired here in America to do it, even though I finished up doing most of it in England.
The Bounty was such a big picture, and especially just that cast. That cast is amazing. I know that folks weren't who they are today. Anthony Hopkins, obviously he was a star, but he wasn't the Anthony Hopkins that we know today. But my God, what a performance.
Tony was, known as a very talented actor, but he hadn't really, done any of his major work at that stage. And Mel Gibson, of course, he'd done Mad Max. He really wasn't that well known either. But the real credit goes to Debbie Williams, who was the casting director on it, and she brought people like Daniel Day-Lewis and Liam Neeson to my attention, and she put together a fantastic cast.
I'm very curious about how you came to make No Way Out, because The Big Clock is one of my favorite noirs, and I'm always a fan of how we can take something in the past and reinterpret it for the present, and you brought that story so up to date with No Way Out.
I have to confess, I didn't even know it was a remake when I made No Way Out. I thought it was an original script by Robert Garland, and so after I'd made the film, I was at a function one night and I ran into Mel Gibson, and he said, "Oh, I hear you've done a remake of The Big Clock." And I was like, "What? What are you talking about?" And he said, "No Way Out. It's based upon a book called The Big Clock." So that was how I got to know there was a movie even called The Big Clock.
What was that experience like for you, making that film?
Well, I love politics and I love thrillers, and, I managed to be in Washington for a lot of it. And then, we built, we did some amazing sets and stuff for it. So it was a great movie to be part of.
Yeah, your thrillers are just out of this world. I just rewatched The November Man, and I really appreciate your thrillers, but I also appreciate that you don't just stick to one genre. I wouldn't even know necessarily where to put, say, like a Cocktail, to say like, oh, well, it's this, it's that, because there's a little bit of a lot of things.
No, the truth is I love making movies and I love telling stories, and, and I also try and, make my life not be Groundhog Day, just doing the same thing again and again. So I'm attracted to different sorts of stuff, and I develop different sorts of things. And, if you look at like movies I've written myself, like The World's Fastest Indian and Spanish Palace, they really don't have very much in common other than the sort of, the same guy made them.
Well, I guess if there was one thing I would point to, it feels like there's usually a male protagonist, and it feels like they're having some sort of a crisis and just having to kind of get their life together. And I would say that that is also there in White Sands, just the whole Ray character. Does he want to stay the small town deputy, or does he want to go on this adventure?
No, that's probably true. I mean, lots of one's work does, is not conscious. It's, subconscious in a way, what you're attracted to, what you're interested in, what you feel like you say as a filmmaker. So some of it's, it's not like going after something. It's just what you're attracted to in a way that you feel confident to and interested in to want to make it. I mean, like if I look at a movie like, well, No Way Out and then say 13 Days, the common thread there is really my interest in politics and American politics as it plays out in the world stage, and that's really what got me interested in those films and at the very basic level of how I came to be attracted to them.
What attracted you about the story for White Sands?
First of all, I love the desert. I just love the sort of, there's something about it that, and setting a film in and around Santa Fe, and, that was very attractive to me. And so it's a little bit of a connection to my sort of film going past, loving the Westerns and stuff like that. So it's hard to put into words what was attractive to me, but, I just love the potential of what it could be.
That was another one where you just had such a remarkable cast, and I was especially impressed by Samuel L. Jackson. That was one of his earlier roles, and just he is wonderful in that movie.
Thanks. No, he was a great actor to work with.
I've read Daniel Pine's screenplay, and there's a lot more of the Molly character that Mimi Rogers plays. Did you shoot that, or did you decide to not even film that?
I'd be lying if I said I remember any change to the script.
Tell me, what do you remember? What was your experience making the film?
My experience was, Willem Dafoe, who was a wonderful actor to work with, Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio, and of course, the legendary Mickey Rourke, and then Sam Jackson and Emmett Walsh, James Redhorn. Some of those actors were, me working with American actors at their very best, and so I think it was just the experience of making it in a location that I really enjoyed being in. And being out there on the road. I mean, there were some dramas I remember making it. It was a non-union picture, and the union wanted to unionize the movie, and so that happened in the middle of it. And literally one day, I was on the side of the road negotiating with the producers and the union to be allowed to keep shooting and getting the producers to agree to unionize the picture. So it's stuff that you don't think of as a role that you as a director, you're going to face. But I remember that one day, that was really quite something.
Did you shoot that all on location? Was that all New Mexico area stuff?
Yeah, all around Santa Fe and White Sands. And
was that your first experience with a rodeo?
Yeah, I think it probably was.
I can't even imagine how challenging that must be to try to film something like that.
I didn't remember, I just remember really enjoying doing that film. That's what I was hoping to find when I came to America in terms of the sort of movies I wanted to make, and there I was making one.
I kind of lumped that one in with The Getaway as well, because it seems like No Way Out, White Sands, and The Getaway just really complement one another. And I'm very curious what it was like to make The Getaway because of the history with that film, and especially when you have your two lead actors married and making one of their first films together.
I mean, once again, it was the same sort of attraction to that film, getting out into the West. We shot a lot of it around Yuma and not Santa Fe, Phoenix, Arizona. It's just, I just love being in the locations.
Tell me a little bit about Species, if you could, because that one feels like a real departure for you.
There were a couple of reasons why I was interested in that film. The first thing was that my agent, Mike Marcus, had gone to run MGM, and he got me to read the script, and, he was very forceful about wanting me to do it. And I knew him well, and I liked him a lot, and, so I was attracted to, just the idea of making a movie at MGM for Mike. But I also was, it was the beginnings of digital technology, and so I wanted the opportunity to, throw myself in the deep end of trying to create digital figures and see how they worked in, a live action film, and that proved to be very challenging. So, it was really a learning curve, really, for me. And then we managed to get a really great cast together for it. And once again, I had a lot of fun doing the movie.
It's just every single movie I think about for you, it's like, oh, wow, yeah, that had this person or these. That wasn't really such an ensemble of all the guys who are looking for Syl.
Listen, casting's everything, and, I really am very difficult to please when it comes to casting, and I know what I'm looking for, and one of the things that I'm always looking for is to find actors who, are totally believable, but also who, you don't get them confused. So I try to cast everybody in very different sort of visually different look, different accents, just so that every character has a strong presence on the screen.
Was Dante's Peak, was that the first time that you and Pierce Brosnan worked together?
Yeah, I guess it was. I knew Pierce as a friend, actually, before we did the movie. We happened to be both out in Malibu, living in Malibu, and we became friends out there through some mutual friends of ours.
I did want to ask you about The World's Fastest Indian because I had heard that was really a passion project for you, and I'm curious how you came to want to tell that story.
It started out as a documentary back in the late 1960s, early 70s about the real person. And I came to America with the real guy, and we went to Bonneville, and I shot this half-hour documentary about him. But he was such a sort of character that I always was sort of, think of, what I could do that would be original and have some connection to America as well as in the audience, as well as, be rooted in my, home country at the time, New Zealand. In 1979, I started writing the script. So it took from 1979, 2005, I guess, is when it got released. It had a fair role. It was with me for a long time. And I think really what it was my agent at the time suggested that Tony Hopkins would be great to play the lead in it, and Tony said yes, and so the movie at that point really, took a big turn in terms of trying to find finance for it, and my wife found some Japanese investors that were wanting to do something with me, and she was programming a film festival in Tokyo at the time, and so just a whole lot of things fell into place finally that allowed me to make it, and then my good friend Gary Hannon, he also helped raise the money, and so it was one of those independent movies that was very difficult to get up and running, but once we did, it was great to have made it. I've always been attracted to road movies, and once again the sort of often the road movies about the terrible people that people meet along the way. Well, this one was the complete opposite. But when he came to America, I only had amazingly sort of positive stories to tell about his American experiences, and so I was attracted to that too. To like such a sort of homage to the America that I had also found.
How is that for you being a New Zealander and coming over and working in the country? Was there a major difference between the two film industries for you?
I was born in Australia, and then I was actually going to be a geologist, and I went to New Zealand and finished up living there and became a filmmaker in New Zealand. I think the truth was, even though, New Zealand was very inexperienced in terms of filmmaking country at the point that I made those Living Dogs and Smash Palace, the same process is, making a film anywhere in the world is still the same process. You need people that stick by you, people that are as talented and committed to the project as you hopefully are. It's just, I found the experiences are pretty similar.
Do you wish that you were back making films in New Zealand right now because you could actually be making films in New Zealand as opposed to being stuck in lockdown in the U.S.?
Yeah, I wish I was.
I'm curious how the pandemic has affected you and what you've been working on during the time and what's coming up for you in the future. The
positive side of it's been that it's been a time to sort of focus on some scripts and ideas that I've had for a long time and trying to get them down on paper. The negative part of it is that, nobody's doing anything. And so, when the pandemic started, I had some projects that were very likely to have gone ahead and they didn't. They were, the plug was pulled on them once it was clear that there was a good problem. So, yeah, I'm sick of staying home.
I know you did some TV work when in your early part of your career. Have you done any more of that, or do you plan on doing any more of that here in the States?
Well, I think streaming, television has totally reinvented, the possibilities of what filmmaking is. And so, I'm in the process of trying to put together some ideas for, series. Television once was sort of the poor cousin to feature films, because feature films, you could do serious feature films and there wasn't stuff like that being made for television. But now, television has just totally reinvented itself. And, the quality of the equipment that they're being shown into, big screen TVs with great sound systems and, watching watching a film at home now is a completely different experience to what it was 20 years ago.
I mean, the first time I saw White Sands was on VHS.
Yeah, I mean, I've probably got a VHS copy of it here somewhere. No, I mean, that's, for me, the exciting part about the digital world, is that quality has just gone so far ahead from what it was, in the analog days.
Have you shot on digital?
I've always been a great, fan of digital. I was one of the first ones. In fact, I think The Getaway was one of the first films edited digitally. The Bank Job I shot, that was the first digital film I made, and I've only shot digital since then. Digital is, definitely where it's at now, and anybody who's still shooting on film is making life difficult for themselves, I think. You can shoot stuff on your cell phone now that looks amazing. Some stuff on my cell phone that was in the documentary about Bruce McLaren and cars, and some of it I actually did shoot on the cell phone. You wouldn't be able to tell you can't tell what's what. And most cuts in a film are that long anyway, so, you don't really get a chance to look that critically at them. As long as they look sharp and in focus and they're telling the story, that you want to look at, and, now you can put cameras where you could never, ever, ever put them, 10 years ago.
Mr. Donaldson, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate this. I feel like I should have asked more about White Sands, but like you said, it was 30 years ago, or over 30 years. No, 30 years ago.
1992, so that's nearly 30 years ago. Seems like yesterday, though, part of my memory. No, I just love the desert, and any opportunity I get to get out away from LA is always appreciated.